The American household cleaning and pest control industry generates over $27 billion a year. That money targets residential homes exclusively, your home. A traditional hydrogen peroxide fix costs exactly $1.12. The Amish applied this solution once, 60 years ago. Where did the rest of your money go? My name is Noah Miller. For 30 years, I bought every chemical spray and synthetic cleaner the hardware store told me I needed. Black mold on the baseboards, fungus gnats in the soil, stagnant smells in the drains. Same corner, every single time. Is this just how it is now? The secret to a self-reliant home sits completely ignored in your medicine cabinet, quietly pushed aside by the very powers that profit from your endless purchases. The Amish stumbled upon these groundbreaking uses decades before mainstream science caught up. You are about to discover the first 3 hacks that prove this humble brown bottle holds more power than your entire pharmacy. But how did they know? There is a specific reaction that happens when you combine that cheap liquid with one ordinary item from your driveway. Most professionals will swear this process requires a specialized chemical foam. They only know what the industry lobbyists train them to know. That is the part the industry needs you to remain blind to forever. Think of a modern chemical cleaner like throwing a thick wool blanket over a grease fire. The flames vanish momentarily because the blanket smothers the air supply. The highly flammable grease remains perfectly intact underneath, waiting for a fresh breeze to ignite again. The industry lobbyists designed modern sprays to leave the underlying food source behind. The product treats the symptom, but the condition that creates the symptom is still there, unchanged. Hydrogen peroxide operates on pure physics. It carries one extra oxygen atom compared to plain water. That extra atom makes it highly unstable in the best possible way. When it touches a biological contaminant like mold or fungus, it releases that extra oxygen in a violent microscopic explosion. Think of it like a controlled demolition team taking down a condemned building from the inside. The walls of the mold spores physically shatter into pieces. The root system turns into harmless water and oxygen gas. You see a brief white bubbling action on the surface. That bubbling is the visual evidence of cellular destruction happening in real time. The Amish understood this mechanical destruction long before chemists mapped out the exact molecular breakdown. The modern cleaning industry erased this knowledge to protect their profit margin. They replaced a permanent mechanical destroyer with temporary chemical blankets. Every time the blanket wears off, you go back to the store to buy another one. You enter a recurring payment cycle for a problem that stays permanently embedded in your house. I tried the traditional method on a Saturday morning. By the following week, I stood completely amazed at what I was looking at. According to the American Chemical Society's historical records, pure oxidation remains the most efficient way to dismantle organic cellular structures. The old farmers relied on this exact principle to keep their dairies sterile and their crops disease-free. They simply watched the bubbling reaction and knew the threat was gone. The answer was right there, in plain sight. Everyone ignored it because the experts directed their attention elsewhere. I thought I understood why the bubbling worked. Then I took a closer look at how that extra oxygen interacts with the deep root structures hidden inside porous wood, and I realized I had only seen half of it. The industry buried this forgotten technique purely for financial reasons. A one-time $1 fix completely eliminates recurring revenue. A corporation requires constant repeat purchases, a business model entirely incompatible with selling you a single bottle of liquid that turns into plain water after it works. I figured this out standing inside a working dairy barn in Holmes County, Ohio. The air smelled entirely clean, completely stripped of the ammonia and rot you expect in a milking parlor. The farmer showed me his concrete washdown drains. They looked brand new. He pointed to a plastic jug of 3% hydrogen peroxide and a stiff brush. He explained how the extra oxygen atom rips apart the bacteria before it can form a slime layer. I went home and verified the chemical property of oxidation in a university materials database. The science matched the farmer's daily routine perfectly. The $4 version works. There is a $0 version that works even better. It requires something you almost certainly already have in your yard. Have you ever noticed a fine white powder creeping up the bottom edge of your basement drywall? Does your house do this thing where a freshly scrubbed shower drain smells like sulfur 2 days later? Have you ever noticed your indoor potted plants developing a crusty grey layer on the topsoil right before the leaves turn yellow? If you said yes to even one of those, stay exactly where you are. You are witnessing the exact biological survival cycle the corporate cartels rely on to keep you buying their products. The mold and the bacteria simply retreat deep into the porous materials of your home. They wait for the chemical blanket to evaporate. Then they return stronger. In a few minutes, I'm going to tell you about something that costs about the same as a cup of coffee at a gas station. Most people throw it away or pass right by it on the shelf. It is the piece that makes everything else in this method work. It forces the hydrogen peroxide deep into the invisible crevices where the real problem hides. You likely have the symptom in your house right now. You probably plan to buy another expensive jug of bleach this weekend to fight it. That corner of your basement represents only the surface. It is a symptom of something deeper. The true solution requires understanding exactly how to deliver the oxygen atom to the root of the issue. The old-timers perfected this delivery method using basic household items. They bypassed the expensive foams and the chemical gels entirely. What they replaced it with is being sold to you right now at full price. Every time you scrub that shower drain, you leave microscopic scratches in the plastic pipes. Those tiny scratches provide the perfect breeding ground for the next generation of bacteria. The modern brushes and abrasive powders actually prepare the surface for a faster biological return. The industry engineered the cleaning tools to guarantee the failure of the cleaning chemicals. I have shown this to 3 people in person. All 3 said the same thing. Why didn't I know this 30 years ago? The Amish bypass this trap by changing the liquid entirely. They rely on the chemical reaction to reach into the scratches and pull the bacteria out. The bubbling action acts like millions of microscopic scrub brushes working simultaneously inside the plastic grooves. You save your physical energy and permanently destroy the colony at the same time. The delivery method was the real problem all along. You can see this exact principle in action outside your house too. The rotting roots in your garden happen because the soil compacts and chokes off the oxygen supply. The commercial fertilizers you buy simply dump synthetic nutrients on top of suffocating plants. The hydrogen peroxide solution delivers pure oxygen directly to the root system. It aerates the soil chemically. Keep watching. The next part is why I made this video. Up until now, I've been talking about how the cycle traps you. What I am about to describe is entirely different. This is exactly what you do when the problem is already embedded deep in your walls. And the answer is going to sound completely wrong. Keep listening. Quick pause. If you're finding this information revolutionary, hit that like button and subscribe. It helps us fight back against censorship. Why were these incredibly simple, cheap, and effective solutions actively suppressed, even banned, if they truly worked? I remember standing there looking at the wet concrete in that Holmes County dairy barn, watching the hydrogen peroxide foam up against the drain grate. The farmer had not used a single commercial degreaser or ammonia spray in 20 years. I watched the violent bubbling action tear through the organic slime layer, realizing that one extra oxygen atom was doing more mechanical work than any expensive synthetic foam I had under my own sink. The physical reality right in front of my boots completely contradicted 30 years of hardware store advice. This next hack alone could save you thousands, yet it was deliberately erased from public knowledge. Why would they want you to forget something so powerful? Have you ever noticed that dark, greasy ring around your washing machine gasket that never quite wipes away no matter how hard you scrub? Does your house do this thing where the floorboards right below the dishwasher feel slightly spongy, even though you cannot find a single active plumbing leak? Have you ever noticed a fine white powder creeping up the bottom edge of your basement drywall right after a heavy spring rain? If you said yes to even one of those, do not go anywhere. You are dealing with a biological anchor, and the industry is thrilled that you do not know how to break it. That is the part the industry needs you to never find out. In a few minutes, I'm going to tell you about something that costs about the same as a cup of coffee at a gas station. Most people throw it away or never buy it at all. It is the piece that makes everything else work. I will tell you what it is shortly. But first, you need to see what this looks like when the standard advice completely fails. Marcus Thorne is 58 years old, living in Grand Rapids, Michigan. When I first met him, he was kneeling on the concrete floor of his laundry room, scraping peeling paint off a baseboard with a dull putty knife. The whole room smelled intensely of wet cardboard and industrial bleach. He had spent $480 on commercial mold foggers over the previous 4 years. He fought that same 70 square feet of ruined drywall every single spring. He had cycled through 3 different brands of heavy-duty fungal sprays, and every time, the black spots returned thicker than before. I watched him wipe the sweat off his forehead with the back of his wrist. He was exhausted, trapped in a recurring payment cycle that never actually solved his problem. I told him about the Amish dairies, the hydrogen peroxide, and the missing piece that forces the oxygen into the wood. He looked at me like I had suggested rubbing grass on it. He dropped the putty knife into a plastic bucket and stared at the wall for a long time without saying anything. He finally crossed his arms and shook his head, refusing to believe a drugstore liquid could outwork a professional chemical treatment. Most contractors will tell you this is impossible. They are not lying, they were just never taught this. He pointed to the water line on the drywall and explained how deep the rot went. He was convinced he needed to tear out the entire lower half of the room and start over. I asked him to give me 1 hour and $11 before he took a sledgehammer to his own house. Everything I told you so far is true, but there is a second layer, one that makes the whole thing twice as powerful. And it is the exact reason Marcus finally put the sledgehammer down. The secret the Amish understood in the 60s involves weaponizing that hydrogen peroxide using a biological trigger. The missing piece that costs the same as a cup of coffee is a simple 3-pack of active dry yeast from the baking aisle. Most people let it expire in their pantry and throw it away. Yeast contains a specific natural enzyme called catalase. When catalase meets hydrogen peroxide, it triggers an instant, massive release of pure oxygen gas. Think of it like putting a supercharger on a car engine. The liquid peroxide normally just sits on the surface of the wood. The yeast acts as a violent spark, rapidly expanding the liquid into a thick, driving foam that pushes the extra oxygen atom deep into the microscopic pores of the drywall. The mold was hiding in those pores, safely out of reach of your expensive surface sprays. You need standard 3% hydrogen peroxide in the brown bottle. Never buy it in a clear plastic bottle because ultraviolet light degrades the extra oxygen atom and turns it into plain water before you even open it. Write this down. You will want this number later. Measure exactly 2 cups of fresh hydrogen peroxide into an opaque spray bottle. Add exactly 1 teaspoon of standard, unscented liquid dish soap. The soap breaks the surface tension of the liquid, allowing it to penetrate the dust layer on the wall. Spray the affected area thoroughly and let it sit for exactly 10 minutes. You will see a slight bubbling, which is the initial attack on the outer cell walls of the fungus. Most people stop right here. The ones who do not are the ones who never have this problem again. While that sits, take a small plastic cup and mix 2 ounces of hydrogen peroxide with exactly 1/4 teaspoon of active dry yeast. It will immediately begin to foam up aggressively. Take a cheap nylon bristle brush and apply this thick foam directly onto the darkest, most stubborn spots on the baseboard or drywall. The foam expands rapidly, driving the oxygen atoms deep into the cellulose fibers of the paper and wood. It physically shatters the root system of the biological growth from the inside out. Wait exactly 30 minutes, then wipe the wall clean with a damp cloth. People always ask if this violent reaction will strip the paint off their walls. The answer is no. because a 3% oxidation level is too weak to break the chemical bonds of cured latex paint, but perfectly calibrated to rupture fragile biological cells. Others worry that this will not fix deep structural rot. If your wood is crumbling to dust when you poke it with a screwdriver, you have lost the structural integrity and must replace the board. This protocol is designed to permanently execute the biological growth before it reaches that stage. The Amish do not call it a trick. They call it the way things should always have been done. Marcus Thorne applied this exact foam protocol on a Saturday morning. When I spoke to him 14 months later, he had saved over $800 on a quoted professional remediation. He had 0 square feet of new biological growth in that laundry room. His brother-in-law, a skeptical retired general contractor, came over for Thanksgiving dinner and went down to inspect the basement. He ran his bare hand over the baseboards, looked at the clean drywall, and demanded to know what chemical company Marcus had hired. Marcus told him he did it himself. He said, "I threw away every bottle of Tilex I owned. My wife asked me what I did to the basement. I told her $11 and a Saturday morning." That single application triggered a massive chain reaction in his home. Because the biological moisture mat was permanently destroyed, the humidity level in that corner naturally dropped. The laundry room completely stopped smelling like wet dog and stagnant water. His wife finally felt comfortable moving her expensive winter coats out of the upstairs closet and down into the basement storage area. His brother-in-law quietly started using the yeast and peroxide method on his own rental properties the very next month. The forgotten technique worked exactly the way the old farmers knew it would. Scientists now confirm this hack works, but the real question is, how many other vital secrets have been buried, and who is behind the cover-up? If you're tired of corporate lies, share this video. Let's spread the truth. The Amish discovered this purely through generational observation and daily practical necessity. They watched how raw milk reacted to different natural enzymes on the farm and applied those exact biological principles to sterilizing their milking parlors. I stood in Marcus's laundry room 14 months after he applied that yeast foam, looking at the completely clean drywall, and felt a heavy knot form in my stomach. Seeing his $800 in saved remediation costs forced me to confront the decades of my own wasted spending on synthetic sprays. That undeniable physical proof pushed me to empty my own utility closet of commercial solvents and rely entirely on pure oxidation from then on. The answers lie not in labs, but in a forgotten way of life. But what about the banning? Who stood to lose the most from these simple truths? The regulatory bodies erased this protocol from the official commercial remediation guidelines. They systematically replaced traditional mechanical destruction methods with synthetic chemical management systems. A corporation lacks the ability to secure a patent on a natural oxidation process. They possess zero financial incentive to promote a brown bottle of liquid that costs almost nothing. The only way to protect their massive empire involved quietly removing the effective traditional methods from professional training manuals. They engineered the modern cleaning tools to guarantee the failure of the cleaning chemicals. Every product on that big box store shelf represents a calculated business decision to guarantee your return visit. The evidence is undeniable, a deliberate campaign to keep you dependent. But the most powerful hack of all remains, one that could revolutionize your daily life. That hack is simply choosing to walk away from their system entirely. Marcus Thorne used to walk into that hardware store every spring like clockwork. He handed over his hard-earned money for the newest heavy-duty fungal spray, trusting the promises printed on the plastic jug. Today, he operates completely outside of that industry. He is no longer a contributing member of that $27 billion revenue stream. His laundry room baseboards sit perfectly clean, bone dry, and structurally sound, over a year later, without him ever scrubbing them again. He reclaimed his own territory using a cheap combination of basic household staples. This was never about mold. It was about what was taken from you, and how simple it is to take it back. I want you to go down to the comments right now and write out the specific room or the exact structural problem you have been fighting the longest in your own house. Tell me what returns despite every expensive product you buy. Skip the algorithm. I read those answers directly to decide exactly which traditional protocol we investigate and verify for the very next video. Your real situations dictate exactly where we look next to strip away the corporate lies and find the actual physical solutions. $27 billion a year. $1.12. That gap is the exact price of your manufactured dependence. This is the hack they really didn't want you to know. Prepare to be amazed. I decided to record this because I remember the exact feeling of standing on cold concrete, holding an expensive plastic jug, watching the rot return. You have spent years handing over your hard-earned money for temporary chemical blankets. I am giving you this specific yeast and peroxide formula today so you can finally reclaim your own walls. Once you see that foam shatter the biological root system with your own eyes, you hold the power to permanently break the payment cycle. We've only scratched the surface of these 25 incredible hacks. To unlock the full list and join the movement of self-reliant thinkers, click here for the next video or check the description below. Don't let them keep you in the dark any longer.